Hey everybody, how you doing out there tonight? Welcome to Canadian Islander Fan. And normally I just do game recaps, but today was such a big day. I woke up this morning to the shock of opening the TSN page and seeing that Barry Trotz had been fired, and my eyes almost didn't actually believe what I was seeing, and I just went, wow, that was something I didn't see coming at all. However, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was really unusual that nothing was said about Barry. Like everything was just assumed that you can, because of the circumstances and everything that happened throughout the year, that you can finish 20 points out of a playoff spot and still not have to worry about your job. And I thought that was kind of odd at the start. At least something would be said, but it made sense to me. You know, Barry Trotz is one of the premier coaches in all of hockey right now. And but I'm going to kind of throw my sport in with Lou here on this one, and that in itself surprises me. I could definitely see this move being one that we absolutely 100% regret down the road. However, there are some things that I saw and seen and even said in some of my podcasts earlier this year that I'll talk about in a second here of why I think it might be time to actually move on from Barry Trotz. Uh, first off, I want to say what he did in the first 3 years with the New York Islanders is short of a miracle. It's just absolutely amazing the turnaround he did. All the circumstances behind that with Tavares leaving and us being like, what were we, about 17 points of the playoffs around then with Tavares, and we lost him. So how could we expect anything to be better? Yet we win our second round series for the first time in 23 years that year. So that in itself was just amazing, and Barry was outstanding. And uh, I took to Barry right off the hop. I had been hoping for like 10. I was hoping when Barry was in Nashville that the Islanders would eventually get Barry Trotz as a coach, and we finally got him. And I was so happy for it, and but I can see why we let him go, and that in itself is kind of sad. So we're going to take you back just a little bit here. I'm going to go right back to the start. I've never been so captivated by a coach before. uh, I listened to every single one of his interviews. I would listen to every post game presser. I would listen to his practice interviews, and I would listen to his pre-game interviews. And I literally hung on every word this guy was saying because he's such an intelligent hockey man. And I just loved listening to him talk. But over time, and I was talking to some guys on New York Islanders talk message board today about how I'm not so sure that that we're hearing things that the team kind of tuned out Barry Trotz. I'm just going to give you a bit of my experience here. I noticed over time that as we were going that Barry was a little bit hypocritical in some instances, and if he wasn't hypocritical, he was definitely not true to his word. Where he would say one thing about what a player has to do, and that would be the reason why he wouldn't play him. Uh, I didn't like that approach. It always seemed like Oliver Wallstrom was his whipping boy, that he would, out of the blue, by the end, bring up Wallstrom's name. Just at times, I thought he was doing it just to tick off the Islander fan base because he knew how the fan base felt about Wallstrom getting into the lineup and playing a regular shift. And lo and behold, I did see some of the warts on Wallstrom that Barry saw. So uh, that was okay, but it's just his unwillingness to give. You know, you got a guy like Wallstrom, and he says, well, he does this and he does that. But then you see a guy like Josh Bailey on the New York Islander make turnover after turnover, lack of effort, no hitting, no contact, no nothing. And he gets the most minutes of ice time in a lot of games this year. Leads the way for us. And you know, you can, you can't, if you're going to hold your team to it, you can't make two separate different rules for the veterans, and then different ones for the rookies or the up and comers. If anybody saw TSN today, there was an excellent video interview of Mike Johnson talking about Sheldon Keefe of the Leafs, and how he had benched Liljegren from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they put in Justin Hall to replace him. And sure enough, Hall giveaway in the first minute, and they get scored on, Toronto, and the rest of that game is history, as Tampa basically took them over. Now, what Mike Johnson was saying in his interview, he goes, I've heard Sheldon Keefe say, he would talk like this a lot of times. Well, Liljegren made these mistakes. He just seems a little too overwhelmed for the playoffs right now, so we're just going to let him take a look back. And as Mike Johnson said, he goes, well, I see 10-year veterans out there making the same mistakes as Liljegren. So is the playoffs too overwhelming for those 10-year guys? And why do they get a leash? But he kept saying, he goes, he saw a lot of positives in Liljegren by playing, but apparently he makes one or two mistakes, and then he's just overwhelmed, where veterans can just get away with it. And so it's not just a Barry Trotz thing, but it's big now. So now we got to talk about Matt Barzal. And I know on one of my podcasts about it was about a month or two ago, I can't remember. It was when I started back up doing them again, and I did mention that I thought that I said on one of those podcasts that I don't think that Matt Barzal will re-sign with the Islanders when he becomes a unrestricted free agent. And I do believe the reason that he wouldn't stay with the Islanders would have been because of Barry Trotz. Now, Matt has said all the right things. Tavares said all the right things too. However, Matt is saying them completely different. He really does want to be the type of player that he idolized, that stays with one franchise, the Steve Yzerman, the Kane. He idolizes those guys, and he wants to be just like them. So I believe that Matt does want to be a New York Islander for life. However, I know something trumps that, and what trumps that is being able to play. And when I say being able to play, I'm talking about the handcuffs that have been put on Matt Barzal. He is watching all over the league, all these young guys getting thrown a ton of ice time at them. They're making mistakes. They're making rookie mistakes, but they're piling up the points. They're just piling up the points, but not Matt. Matt's got to play the structured defense of the New York Islanders. I had mentioned in that podcast that there was a tweet put out. It was asked Martin St. Louis a question about why Cole Caulfield was playing so much better underneath St. Louis than he was with the prior coach. And St. Louis said to him, he goes, sometimes there's certain players who have a special talent, and you can't treat everybody the same way on a team. And sometimes you just have to let certain things go with the Stars. And I'll take an example of Ovi. Like, the guy stays out for 2 minutes every power play. He just loafs around, conserving his energy, barely back checks, barely does anything, but he still gets to play his power play time for the full 2 minutes every time. Matt is usually taken off the power play about 50 seconds into it, and then we get the second line, usually takes the last minute and 10 seconds. And I think Matt was starting to get a little bit sick of it. He wants to be a performer. He's Showtime. He wants to put up the points. He wants to do those things. And he just couldn't do them on the New York Islanders because of the restraints that Barry Trotz had on him. I looked to that tweet where Martin St. Louis, when he made that tweet, and when he was asked that question, he said, basically you have to let the player play. You have to let him do what he does best. And sometimes it's not always the same as everybody else on the team, but those special talents, sometimes you just got to let go. What a lot of Islander fans don't know that I'm privy to, because I saw it go down, was that Matt Barzal actually liked that comment by Martin St. Louis. A bunch of Islander fans on Twitter picked it up pretty quick and saw that Matt had liked that comment. And as soon as the Islander fans had picked it up, the few that did, Matt quickly deleted that like of that tweet. So there has been something brewing between Matt and Trotz for a while now. I just think they're so well organized that we don't air our dirty laundry in the media. So when you look at Trotz, to me, it's unexplainable how he sees the greatness in Josh Bailey. I just don't, there's nothing about that guy as a hockey player that I see as any good for this team. He needs to go, and he needs to go now. And that's one thing that I've been very consistent about on my podcast. And, but he needs to go. I don't know how many Islander fans know this. Did you know for about the last 4 months of this season that every time we had a 4-on-4, that usually Matt Barzal was the third set out? And a lot of times we got scored on before Matt even got on the ice in a 4-on-4. Do you think Matt Barzal doesn't wonder why he's not on the ice for empty netters when every other star in the NHL seems to be on the ice for empty netters to pad their stats and whatnot? 6-on-5 is not a lot of block shots. It's just not. It's usually scrambles around the net. But all I can think of, one player that I know that if he gets a handle on that puck, he's going to get it out of our end. And that's Matt Barzal. And I have no idea why Matt Barzal was never on defending against the 6-on-5 ever. And it seems like every other star in the NHL is out there padding their stats on. John Tavares has done it for years. Wayne Gretzky did it for years. Wayne Gretzky had 87 empty net goals. 87 empty net goals. You tell me Matt Barzal can't be out there defending, and I'll guarantee you we had a better time in the last half of the season because Brock was getting a bunch of empty netters. But if you remember the first half of the season and the season before, we could never get an empty net goal. And yet Barzal has never been tried. And I think you take all that stuff and you accumulate that all up, and you got an unhappy player in Matt Barzal. Now, some people will say, if he's a prima donna, then we got rid of the wrong person. We should get rid of Matt Barzal instead of Barry Trotz. Well, screw that. You know what? I do believe that we are now a good enough organization, and that people will flock to want to work on the island. I see lots of coaches wanting to take this job from Barry. 100%. It's all because of Lou. And, you got the new building now, you've got everything going. We're a top-notch organization. So we'll have no problem getting another guy in there. And I'm just hoping that whoever that guy is, that they will take the handcuffs off of Matt Barzal, Oliver Wahlstrom, and Kiefer Bellows, and Robin Salo, for that matter. These are all players that should have been playing once we were eliminated. And when I say playing, I'm talking about the most minutes of the game. They should have been playing, because why wouldn't we take that time to see what we got? Barry gets stuck on his one thing, and that's all there is to it. So basically, I noticed Barry doing all this stuff with Matt, and then I noticed him constantly. At one time, it was always because the reporters were always asking about Wahlstrom. But then Barry became very free about offering criticism about Wahlstrom, even when it wasn't asked. And I don't jive with that. I don't like that. And it was absolutely 100% wrong. And the NHL is a young man's game now. We're slow. We need to pick it up. We need the younger guys going. Wahlstrom and Bellows could have so much more experience right now than they do have. And they should be out there. So anyway, as I'm listening to Barry's press conferences, I noticed that at the end, right at the very end here, like for about the last maybe 40 games or so, I found myself watching his press conferences and I found my mind wandering and I might do other things. And then I realized, oh, geez, I didn't hear what he said for the last 3 minutes or so. And then I would go, oh, that's okay. I'll just let it go. And the reason is because I was tuning out on Barry because I didn't believe in what he said anymore because he would say one thing and then contradict it and be a hypocrite on another thing and whatnot. You know what? Yeah, I tuned out. So if I tuned out, I could see the players tuning out as well. It's a it's a sad day in Islander land because Barry did so much for us, and I still think Barry is a fantastic coach. He can put in the systems and that, but there's just a little bit too much old time in there for me. And I'm actually going to go out on a limb here and give a huge kudos to Lou for making this move. It's ballsy. It's ballsy. Like Lou's got cojones this big for sure. This is a big move, but I think it could be a move that turns out for the better for us in the long run. And in no way am I taking anything away from Barry Trotz and what he did for this franchise. Like unbelievable. But I hate to say that after only 3 years that his time has already run short. But like I said, I was starting to tune out his interviews when I literally was hanging on every word the guy said. And even when I thought differently of him, I just thought, well, I must be wrong. And but then things just started repeating themselves over and over and over again. My best friend is a Washington Capitals fan, and I asked him about Trotz, and he told me he wasn't sad to see him go because even though he won the cup with him, because he wouldn't play the young guys like Burakovsky and those guys. He just wouldn't play them. And he did the same thing to them and don't forget, he did it to Barzell as well. Barzell once upon a time was Barry's whipping boy until Oliver Wahlstrom took over to be his whipping boy. And yeah, so it's not good. So it's kind of a sad day in Islander history today, losing Barry. And he could go to the Rangers, he could go to the Leafs, he could my guess is he's going to end up in Winnipeg because he is a family guy and I think he kind of wants to be home, maybe do that last one. Being from Dauphin, Manitoba, I lived in Manitoba, and anybody who returns to Manitoba must love Manitoba because there's nothing spectacular about Manitoba, let me tell you. So but to some people it's home, and I believe to Barry it's home, and this may be the place that he wants to end his career. And a lot of people say, well, no, Barry's going to grab a team that's competitive. Now, do not forget, the Winnipeg Jets have underplayed the last 2 years. The media and everybody was expecting big things out of the Winnipeg Jets, as in making the playoffs, as in making a push for the cup. They have got a lot of solid core in there. They've got Scheifele, they've got Wheeler, they've got Ehlers, they've got Connors, they've got Hellebuck. This is stuff that Barry can work with. Barry could take the Winnipeg Jets and put him in the playoffs next year and take him on a playoff run if they wanted. So yeah, I see him turning to the Jets for sure. Anyway, I don't know, Barry will never see this video, but just in case he does, I want to thank Barry for everything he did for us. Best coach we've had since Al Arbor, no doubt. And it was a pleasure seeing his professionalism. I was a little upset with him at the end there in the last year, but hey, that's the shelf life of a coach, I would say. So anyway, right now it's going to be something that's up for a great debate with Islander fans. This one, I got a feeling I'm in the majority or in the minority, thinking that this may be a not so bad move because I was getting very frustrated with. And here's another thing: like, there's just so many things that triggered me about all this stuff. Last year, Barry stapling Leo Komarov to Barzell's side. Why did he do that? Oh, because he's the closest to Anders Lee. He can stand in front of the net and bang it around. Well, no, he's not close to Anders Lee, because Anders Lee has some great hockey talent. He makes things happen. Leo Komarov and Anders Lee were nothing alike, and yet he stapled Komarov to Barzal. And don't think as a player, these players don't know that. Like, why are you giving me this driftwood to play with? And when I'm supposed to be the main guy, I'm supposed to be the man, and you're giving me Leo Komarov? Are you kidding me? Like, holy smokes. Yeah. So anyway, interesting day on the island, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely interesting day. I wish Barry all the best of luck. I'm excited about this summer. There may be some changes coming with player personnel. I don't know. Lou gave him a bit of a vote of confidence at the end of the season. Who knows? Maybe Barry talked Lou into that. Very possible. Very possible. We don't know. And the one thing that we do know is we'll never know the inner workings of what happens in the Islander offices as long as Lou Lamoriello is the general manager. Anyway, that's the way I see this whole thing going down. It was a shocking way to start the day, but the more it went on, the more I understood. And I kind of already understood. Like, I even went as far as saying, like, like, it might be time to make a move. Like, I know I don't want to lose another superstar. And we can't even call Matt Barzal a superstar because Barry won't let him be a superstar. But he should be a superstar, and he has all the tools to do it. So let's see what the new coach can do. I would be fine. I was worried that Barry would be taking his entourage with him, as Mitch Korn and Greco and Lane Lambert and all the boys. However, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that the Islanders still have all those guys under one more year of contract. And I didn't hear anything about any of them getting laid off today. So that's good news. It could also mean that Lane Lambert's going to be the guy taking over. Now, I already have more respect for Lane right now than I do for Barry, because the few games that Lane took over, Bailey's ice time dropped way down. And so just because he coached alongside Barry doesn't mean he'll have all the same ideas as Barry. Every new coach coming in has his own ideas. Now, this could totally backfire like the Todd Reardon thing did in Washington once Barry left there. Who knows? Who knows? It's going to be an interesting summer. That's all I can say. So anyway, little off-season news from the Islanders. Don't know if it's good. Don't know if it's bad. Leave your comments down below if you got something to say about it. Interesting days for the New York Islanders. I'm going to be happy to score more goals one way or another. I don't care if we give up a few more. The beauty of it is we have two great goaltenders, so that you can play a little offense and then you count on them instead of being hemmed around. Like we've done this around the circle thing in our defensive end, the old bend don't break thing under Barry forever, where we just let them pepper shots at us from the outside. Now, most of them are useless. Most of them don't do everything, but every once in a while one gets ticked and you get tipped and goes in and gets a goal or a rebound or whatever, and they score a goal. I don't know about you, but like I don't want my team to get outshot 39-21 and win the game, and we win the game 3-2 or 2-1 or whatever. I want to see some excitement. I want to see what Barzal can do. So anyway, that's all I got for you on this day. A shocking day, May the 9th, 2022. Never thought it would happen that Barry Trotz has been let go by the New York Islanders. So anyway, all you guys out there and girls, I want you all to take care and peace out.